Top of the table. Joe, cancel the rest of the season now. Let's just end it and give the trophy to whoever's sitting at the top. I haven't really checked who it. Oh, wait, it's us? And we go to Anfield on Sunday? This is a big happy hour. Let's get ourselves ready.
We are top of the league. Say we are top of the league. No, I can't, Paulie. I can't get myself too excited, but doesn't it feel great? I think we can officially say, Paulie, this is our first United happy hour sat top of the league. Is that right? I think that's right.
I mean, at a certain point, they have to thank us because let's not forget they haven't lost a league game since the United happy hour started. So I don't want to take credit for it, but it's certainly not. It's kind of our fault.
Yeah, and also it's kind of the complete opposite to what happened to Troops when he moved out to America, isn't it, Paulie? I think you had to wait 2 or 3 months before Arsenal even got a win. I think he moved out there on the 5th of November or something, and then he had to wait. Well, whenever they won,
that might have actually been better for Troops because the losing probably helped him sell his stream a bit more of, see Troops lose his mind.
Yeah, I think everybody likes to see that. And unfortunately, we haven't got to that stage yet, Paul, and I hope we won't. I think we're slightly better than to lose our mind, but we've not had anything to lose our mind about. And I think, obviously, that's been really positive, Paulie. I think it's just been so refreshing to see the team playing so well, picking up results. And, you look at the unbeaten run that we're currently on, Paulie. If we can sort of match that and do it again, we will be in a really strong position come 10, 11 games down the line, won't we?
Yeah, and I have a few things to say here. One is we always talk about it, 4 out of 5 and 3 out of 5. And, they had won, what was it, 3 out of the last 5? Yeah, they lost to City, and they drew Leicester, so 3 out of 5. And then we started a new one now with the win against Burnley, and you hope to win 3 out of the next 5 or 4 out of the next 5. And if you keep doing that, especially because the losses seem to keep happening outside of the league. So in the league, we're doing a lot better, but you're putting a comment from Hader up here, and not to give too much credit into that big head of haters, but I think it was before, I think maybe the Chelsea match. It was early in the season.
Yeah.
It was after Spurs, maybe after PSG, maybe that win, or maybe after the Leipzig, maybe before the Arsenal match, where Hader was the first one to say, look, the league's wide open, and I'm not saying we're going to win the league, but if we just find a bit of consistency, we can win the league. And now look,
carry on, Paulie.
We found a bit of consistency, and guess where we are? And now it's just about maintaining consistency.
And the reason I've put that comment up and left it there, Paulie, is because I think this guy has been integral to the not Hader, by the way, the Pogba Paul Pogba has been integral to this consistency that United have found. I think over the last month or two, and it's brilliant to see, really. And it's almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Paulie, because if you think back to the comments that Raiola made just before that massive game against Leipzig, I think everybody thought that's going to be the straw that breaks camel's back. There is no way back from here. But Paul Pogba has just become this it's almost he's battered it all away, and his performances have just come through this negativity, and it's been brilliant to see that bit, Paulie.
Yeah, well, and that was everybody was saying this is just such a distraction. And I remember we came on here, and I'll post that Phil Jackson thing again. It's a distraction for you. We spent the whole day before the Leipzig match talking about Paul Pogba instead of talking about the Leipzig match. And quietly then, Paul Pogba comes on. He's our best player against Leipzig. And he's been a sensational player in every aspect since then. We've been using him in 2 ways. We've been playing him in this double pivot with Matic, which helps us break down these teams, Sheffield United, Wolves, Burnley. When you cross midfield, the way that they just pack it in, and you need that extra ounce of creativity. And because Matic is able to cover more, to be that more defensive player, it allowed it. If you saw in the second half, Pogba was just on the edge of the box the entire time. And it was, he was playing as almost like a dual number 10.
Yeah.
So that, and then when we can't play that way, we're putting him on the left wing, where in the matches against City, in the match against City, both of them, he recognized this, I have to put in a shift today. It's not just about, they're not just doing this so that I can roam free. They're doing this, so that we have more defensive. So we're defensively solid in the middle of the pitch, but I still have to watch my guys. And yes, he has problems tracking back, but once he gets back, he's sensational. He does the defensive work once he gets back. And he's been doing that against City. Against Villa was a different situation. It was, again, we're playing McTominay and Fred to give them a game. But in that one, you have more room to roam around free. And Pogba was all over the pitch in that match, and he was sensational. And his form right now, I don't care where he wants to play next season. If he's going to play like this, then I'm going to ride this out. I am going to enjoy the hell out of it, and I am going to wish him well at the end of the season.
Pauly, I absolutely agree with you. And the other positive for me on Pogba, I think I said this on Red Devils Talk last night, was I think the last couple of weeks Bruno started to struggle a little bit. And I don't know whether it's Bruno struggling or whether, teams have slightly worked it out. And what's happening now is that, they're just getting people around him. But I think actually the form of Paul Pogba could benefit Bruno Fernandes, because all of a sudden now people have got to start taking more notice of what Paul Pogba's doing on a football pitch, because he's influencing the game in similar areas to where Bruno can influence the game. And if that means that people are paying less attention to Bruno, then he's going to get more space on the pitch. The same way as I think Pogba, when he first came back into the team after Project Restart, benefited from the fact that a lot of people were keeping their eye on Bruno, and it allowed Pogba to flourish a little bit. And now I think it's going back the other way, and I think that that's really positive for the team as well.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think Bruno's a little bit tired, but I also think that he just doesn't have to do as much. And that's the thing. If you look at where he touches the ball, when Pogba's on the pitch versus when he's not. And I'll put this up. This does not include the latest match. I haven't updated it, but you really see what happens is when Pogba's not on the pitch, he becomes a goal hunter, and he gets in and around the box a lot more. And he doesn't touch the ball in the attacking third as much. He touches it more when he is touching in the attacking third. It's more in the box. And when Pogba's on the pitch, he doesn't touch the ball in the middle of the pitch as much. He's touching it more in the attacking third, and he's being more of a facilitator. And it's a means of saying, Bruno, we don't need you to do it all. At the beginning of the season, we're only in this position right now because Bruno carried us through the month of October. Yeah. And we don't need him to do that anymore. Now when Pogba's on the field, it opens up Bruno to be this facilitator, because it opens up Rashford as well. And the last 3 games have been more difficult because Wolves and Burnley have been so compact that, we've seen Bruno get a little frustrated, but United have been, the team that knocked on the door in each of those games. There just hasn't been a lot of space, but this is what you get now is instead of, we struggled in this last year, but last year we came at them with McTominay and Fred and Pereira trying to find Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial. Now you have Pogba and Bruno. And that's the difference. And, Bruno gets the assist on Rashford's goal against Wolves. He gets the pre-assist he feeds the ball to Rashford, who then finds Pogba. And we don't need Bruno to do as much. It makes us more dangerous.
Yeah, and I think this is a brilliant comment here, Paulie. Before we move on, I don't think we credit Ollie enough for how he's handled the Pogba situation. His man management is exceptional. And I have to agree with this, Paulie. I think there's a lot of managers that would have dealt with this in a different way. They would have let their ego take over. They would have allowed the players' ego to get involved. But I think what's really important here that I think a lot of people tend to forget is I think Ollie, the pre-existing relationship that Ollie had with Pogba before he came to the club from the days in the academy, I think plays a massive part. Paul Pogba knows that in someone like Ollie, there's a manager there that's interested in his career. And I think Pogba knows for the first time that he's actually not a prisoner at Manchester United. If he wants to move on in the summer, he can do. I think under Mourinho, I think he felt sometimes that he wasn't loved, but the other problem was at the same time is the club were not going to sell him either, and Mourinho wasn't going to let him go, so he felt almost like a prisoner. Whereas I think as long as he gives everything for Manchester United, and he shows love for the club, I think you'll see it'll get to a point where Ollie may even help him facilitate a move, Paulie, a little bit like he's doing with Jesse Lingard at the moment. I feel like he's trying to help Jesse take that next step in his career now, like he's probably done with Fosu Mensah as well. So I think that's, you can't underestimate that as well. I think on a human level, Ollie is connected with Paul really well.
I just want to expand on what you just said. When you look at the juxtaposition of earlier this week, Vatska speaking about Jadon Sancho and how he's been a little bit unhappy at Borussia Dortmund. And, everybody knew he wanted to leave this summer, but he didn't act up and he didn't force the move through. And they said, all right, you're going to stay. And now he's unhappy. And, his performances have dipped. His underlying numbers are still really good. They're not where they were last year, but they're really good. But his performances have dipped. And the alternative is that's what, you look at it and you go, that's what happens when players don't act up and they don't force the move in. Griezmann didn't show up to camp for Atletico Madrid. Lukaku went off to Belgium to force that move through. Then you look at Pogba. Pogba comes in and he works hard and he's professional and he does it every day. And it's just his agent is driving, is acting up and doing that. And it's so easy to throw that away. It's annoying for us, the fans, but for the players, it's easy for us to throw that away. And the other thing is, I was telling you after the show last week was in baseball, the way that contracts work, it's weird. Players are under team control for, I don't know if Joe's still here. He's frozen. So we might have lost Joe, but I'm going to keep going on this point. In baseball, players are under team control for about 6 years and until they hit free agency, when then they can create a bidding war and get every team to bid on them. And it's similar to football. The smaller clubs can't afford them and the bigger clubs will pay them more. And the year before their contract expires is what's called a contract year. And they have done numerous studies on it. And it's hilarious how much better players perform in those contract years when they're trying to get that big contract from teams. They typically have the best year of their career, and it's almost always better than the first year under their new contract. Sometimes they settle in, and in 2 or 3 years they start producing again at that level, but that year where they're playing for their contract is always just such a better year. And you don't get that in football, because in football, if you're playing, for Brighton and you play really well, even if you have 3 years left on your contract, a Chelsea or a United or a City, they're going to come calling and you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Paul Pogba is the closest thing that we're getting to that, because like you just said, he knows he'll be allowed to leave if he wants to, but he needs to find a buyer, because Real Madrid don't have money right now.
Yeah.
Juventus don't have money right now. Juventus and Real Madrid are trying to shed wages left and right because they can't afford players, and COVID is hurting them. Real Madrid just said we need to sell, and they listed about 6 players. Gareth Bale, a couple other. It's like those players have been on the transfer list for years now, and nobody's bought them. So unless they clear those players off, they can't come up with the money that United are going to want for Paul Pogba. And they might not offer Paul Pogba the money that he wants. But because right now, if you look at the last 2 years, what's he done? So he spent last year injured. So he has got to show the world I am still Paul Pogba, which means I have to play out of my mind this year to get someone to come in and buy me, which means if you're United, you are going to benefit greatly from that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, Paul. Look, Paulie, it's that time. Look, we always do this at the start of the show. Let's move on. Let's have a look what I made an absolute mess of that. I made sure that the video absolutely butted into what I was going to say. I was about to say, let's have a look what's on social media. And I do want to start off, Paulie, with a little bit of a shameless plug for you and this comment that's coming from Gotham City. Paulie, loved your stages of Ollie's tactical evolution right up. As far as I'm concerned, Paulie, this is the best thing that's on social media this week, mate. So I've got to start with this first of all. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, guys, I'll let you market it, Paulie, but it is on your Twitter. I think it's your pinned tweet at the moment. Do check it out. It's a fantastic read. As far as I'm concerned, it's absolutely bang on. I'm sure everybody else will agree as well. And it just shows that actually Ollie's not one-dimensional when it comes to tactics.
Yeah, subscribe to it. It's questthoughts.substack.com. The plan is this is 5 parts of varying length, but if you enjoy if you enjoy reading long pieces, you'll enjoy it. There's a lot of GIFs. There's a lot of graphics in there to break it up. So, illustrations, back up the points. The goal is to do probably 1 or 2 type of pieces like these a month. And if you hit the subscribe button, they will go right to your inbox. It is completely free.
There you go. You see, you cannot be any fairer than that, can you? Free content, great read. Do check it out. Some nice bedtime reading there. That's what I used it for last night or the night before. I'm not quite sure. Just before we do move on to look at what's on social media, Paulie, as well, we have had a few comments already talking about how we would set up against Liverpool. Formation we'll go to. Do stick with us if you're watching now. We are going to get to that. That was the subject of our poll question. And, it wasn't the poll question per se, but it was on the subject of Liverpool. So we will talk about Liverpool a little bit later on in the show. As for what's on social media, Paulie, there's a lot of nastiness that we won't get into at the moment. I don't think we need to go there, apart from
not the good kind of nastiness.
No, and the people that are doing it, just know if you're out there watching, it's not acceptable. Get a life, move on. Probably come off Twitter. It's probably for the best. But what is on social media, Paulie, is like we said on Tuesday, what's always on social media around this time, and talks about United linked to another player. Now, you haven't done an article on this, but you have been tweeting about this today, and you've done a bit of a thread, which I think is also another interesting read where you make some great points. But this is your main point that you're making in this tweet, and you're saying if Samari is available for 20 million, United would be foolish not to make that move. He may not be able to replace Matic or be the lone holding midfielder right now, but at 21, he already gives you more than McTominay, which gives much needed depth to the midfield. And I think that's right. But I mean, look, I think I mentioned in the group chat the other day, I think there's something about a move by United for a CDM in this window, because we talked about Moises Caicedo and everything around that. We still don't really know what's going on with that, but there was reasons why United have pulled out of that deal. And you just wonder whether they look at Samare and just think, they've been linked with this player before, by the way, a year, 18 months ago. They seemed to be very interested when it looked, again, like Pogba was leaving. But it just seems to me like, why would you pull out of that deal if you didn't have something else lined up? Although, having said that, there's another part of me that says I don't think United will do a lot in January. So I don't know, Paul. I'll let you have a little chat about Samari and your reasons why you feel that it wouldn't be such a bad move. I mean, you've already explained some of them in that tweet, but I know you've got more to say on this.
I mean, sure. It could also just be that we don't have money. We didn't have money. We didn't have money in the summer, and we haven't made any money this year. And fans aren't coming back anytime soon. So when's the money rolling in? But you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Right now, we've all been saying that the prices are going to come down. Every club has basically said we're waiting for the prices to come down on players because COVID teams need money. And yet nothing's happened because no team wants to be the first team to admit we don't have money and we're selling. Now, Ligue 1 in France, they have a way worse financial situation. I mean, they almost had a TV network collapse. And, I think 2 weeks ago, we were talking about a lot of teams going out of business. I'm not too familiar with what happened, but I am familiar with the fact that Ligue 1, to begin with, if you're not PSG, you don't have as much money as the rest of Europe, of the big 5 teams in Europe. You also, Ligue 1 is a hotbed for midfielders and French midfield. And, in Michael Cox's book, The Mixer, he just calls them the water carriers because, cycling is huge in France. And, not everybody is the Chris Froome of the team. You have to have your climbers, your sprinters, and the guys who help you do that and stop off at the team car and grab the water and the power bars and hand them out. And, not everybody on, you can't go into a team. You can't build a team and say, I want Robertson at left back and Alexander-Arnold at right back and get me the most offensive attack-minded center backs and then get me Pogba and Thiago in midfield and Bruno in front of them and then, attacking wingers. You can't do that. Your team needs to have balance and your team needs to have stars somewhere and then other players just do the dirty work to let your stars shine. When Oli first took over, why did Paul Pogba shine? Because Ander Herrera was doing so much dirty work. Ander Herrera and Jesse Lingard did so much dirty work that allowed Rashford and Pogba to just do the things that they are good at. Yeah. So you need that. And Ligue 1 has a ton of that. So those guys are there to be for cheap.
Yeah. Go on, Pauly, carry on, sorry. And
like what we were saying on Tuesday, you're not going, Bruno Fernandes is a once in a generation January transfer. You're not getting a player that's going to put you over the top in January. What you can get is depth, and what you can get is someone that can settle in and be very good next year. United, what'd they do last summer? They didn't add a single first choice player. You can't even argue that Cavani is a first choice player. Has he even started 2 games in a row? Maybe once, but he's very much a rotational player and they got depth and more depth. And suddenly they're at the top of the league because at the end of the year last year, we said if we're on our day, our first 11 can compete with anybody. But you have to have depth to make sure that your first 11 don't burn out. So you need that right now. And yeah, we have a defensive midfielder, Nemanja Matic, really good at it. The problem with Nemanja Matic is he's getting old and he can't play every game. So when he comes out, you need someone else that can be there. And when for some reason Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just refuses to play Fred at the same time as Pogba. So when Matic comes out and Fred replaces him, now he has to take Pogba out, and then he comes into Scott McTominay, and suddenly the floor of your team, the ceiling of your team just lowers massively. Those, as a pair, those two bring down the team. They just don't get the best out of everybody. And what you look at, this is Soumare and what he brings in terms of the energy and the defensive aspect is right up there with McTominay, but he also progresses the ball. He's much better at the ball progression aspect than McTominay. So you're getting depth. Are you bolstering your first choice 11? No. But, for comparison's sake, this is McTominay. You're not bolstering your first choice 11, but when you have to make a change, whether it's an injury or because Matic can't play every game, suddenly the drop-off isn't as bad. In football, this is what Real Madrid found out in the early 2000s when they're in their first Galacticos era. You're only as good as your weakest link. If your weakest link brings you down, you're not going to go very far. So if United don't have a backup midfield pair that can get the best out of Bruno and Pogba and Rashford, then you need to upgrade your backup midfield pair. And doing that cheap in January is great. And then in the summer, then you go and say, all right, where are other holes? We need a Jadon Sancho. We need a Jack Grealish. Well, we need to replace Pogba, etc.
Paulie, I agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of people, myself included, have been guilty of the fact of thinking, look, if you're going to buy players in January or even in the summer, they've got to improve the first 11. And I don't think it's always about that, to be fair. I think someone made a good point on something I was watching the other night. It might have been the masterclass, actually, with Hayder, where, this idea that if you look at it, a lot of the players in the double pivot for Manchester United this season haven't been the problem when you really look at it. I've been the first person to say that United need a CDM, and I still would like one person to do what two is doing at the moment so we could get more attacking flair on there. But actually, when you look at the performances of McTominay, Fred, Matic, Pogba, all those players that have played double pivot this year, they're not the worst players in this United team on form or overall rating. I don't think, to be fair. I think that we've struggled defensively as well. It's not all about the pivot. But
here's the thing that I will say to you, Joe, because I think we spoke about this a few weeks ago when I said they're not actively bad. It's not, oh, he's making mistakes on the ball and he's directly responsible for conceding. Although both McTominay and Fred, they get eager on the press and they get sucked out of position a lot. And it's usually McTominay more than Fred leaves the other one isolated and exposed, and that hurts them. And it happened a lot against Leeds, which is why Leeds got so many chances early when it looked like a blowout that all of a sudden you're like, whoa, if they're not careful, this game could get close again. And it was because the midfield was letting them go through them like holes in Swiss cheese. But it's not that they're actively bad, but as a midfielder, you are not to make, I hate when I do this, that I make comparisons with American sports, but as in American football, the central midfielder is your quarterback. And who are the playmakers on an American football team? The wide receivers. So what you're trying to do is, you want to get your receivers the football in space so that they can go and make plays. Your quarterback could throw a screen pass to them at the line of scrimmage every time. High probability of success. I'm going to throw it right out, get the ball into your hands. You go do something. But then the defense is going to be all over you. You're only going to gain 2 or 3 yards. You might break one every so often, but most of the time, not going to work. You want to get him 8 to 15 yards down the field and get the ball into his hands. And sometimes that means you got to throw the ball into tight windows. So McTominay and Fred, when they play together, it's more like, what do they call it in American football when none of your players are open? So you throw the quick 4-yard pass to your running back, the check down. All right, nobody's open. We're going to go with the safe one, try to pick up a few yards. For them, it just always seems to be the check down. And
the safe option,
And we just don't see it. I had a couple of plays from the Burnley match where we saw Matic getting the ball, or Bayek steps up at the midfield and he doesn't win the duel. But Matic is already back in position as the second center back next to Maguire. Now, Fred or McTominay, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. Matic is there. He wins the ball back and it fires a pass, threads the needle right through in between 2 Burnley players to Bruno, who could take it on the half turn and go forward. So it's one, Matic has that passing ability. Bruno and McTominay and Fred don't. And, if they do, they don't trust it enough that when they see that pass, they don't make it. And maybe it's because they know they aren't good enough to make that pass. But that's what you need. So when you look at this team, you look at the next couple of games we've got Liverpool, we've got Fulham, we've got Liverpool again. You look and you say, I almost need Matic to be in there against Liverpool because he's defensively, he's the best one. And you want to hit him on a counter, you want his passing. But then you're like, well, Fulham is going to be a team that sits back and we need Matic to just be that defensive guy because that allows the rest of these guys to go and be at their best. And you're like, but now we're going to play him 4 times in 2 weeks? That's not going to work. And that's why you need to upgrade your backups, because the central midfielder's job is to make the rest of the team better. We've said this before. What does Nemanja Matic do? You can't really describe it in 2 sentences. But whenever he plays, everyone else plays better.
No, I absolutely agree, Polly. And I think what United are really looking for now is someone who can just be braver on the ball. Like you said, instead of looking for the check pass like they do with McTominay and Fred, wouldn't it be nice if someone's brave enough, like Bruno, to try something from that more deeper, but more than just try, execute something from a deeper position, Paulie, so that the likes of Bruno and that front three are getting at teams when they're not back and organised. I mean, the problem is with the McTominay and Fred thing as well, Paulie, is if they're keeping it safe or they're moving it slowly, by the time they move it, the other team, the opposition, are sort of gathered their shape. They're back into their formation. If you've got someone who can move it quickly on the transition, teams are out of position. And then if you've got a disjointed team and you're attacking it, you've got people like Bruno and that front three to exploit it. There's probably not a more dangerous four in the league to exploit a disjointed team that aren't in shape, if you know what I mean.
For sure. I mean, you're talking about two things that somehow I don't have the gifts fired up and ready to go. But I have exactly what you're talking about here. I'm going to pull them up in a minute. When you play that way, I just showed you the stats of when McTominay and Fred play and how much more how much less we score. That number is skewed heavily by the Leeds match. We scored 6 goals in that game. One of them a penalty. So you take that penalty away. They've scored 12 goals. United have scored 12 non-penalty goals with McTominay and Fred on the pitch this year as when they're playing in the pivot. If you take out that Leeds match, it's 7. Like, that's not a lot. And it was like that last year. They just score significantly less. But like what you were saying before, you need someone to go and be decisive with the ball. Get that ball up to your number 10, because if you
quickly.
Yeah. Now you've got options.
Quickly.
Now you've got options. But when you don't do that, if you're just going to keep playing it square, then what happens is it gives the defense time to shift along with you and keep their shape. And then it becomes very hard to break down. And what we see is this is what I find interesting. And I wrote it. There's actually a section about it in those 5, the piece that is on the Substack, the 5 different eras. Last season at the beginning of the year, we really struggled with this. And what happened would be is Maguire would carry the ball forward a lot because defenses just let him. And when Maguire carries the ball forward, it just allows the defense to fall back. They could keep their line outside the box, and then it just constricts the space that United have. And if you look at this year, when Scott McTominay is on the pitch, Harry Maguire carries the ball more. He carries the ball into the final third more. All those his XG buildup gets lower because when he does pass, we're not able to create shots.
Yeah.
So when I showed the stats of these two players, McTominay and Fred only win 50% of their game, and everybody says it's all about the other players that are on the pitch. The other players are mostly the same. It's Rashford, it's Martial, it's Bruno, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, and they have Dan James out there. Yeah, well, they win when they have Dan James out there. But you look at how Rashford doesn't score as often when McTominay is on the pitch. He doesn't shoot as often. Maguire's offensive numbers increase. Luke Shaw's build-up numbers increase. Luke Shaw's expected assists increase. So all of a sudden, what's happening is you're asking your defenders, what's the knock on Luke Shaw? Everybody said, he can't attack. That's the weak part of his game. Well, for argument's sake, let's say that's true. Then that means you're asking someone who can attack to take on more attacking responsibilities because your midfield struggles to progress the ball directly. And if you fix that issue and cover defensively, because defensively they're not as great as they're made out to be.
Yeah.
And then you protect your center backs more. You don't need your left back to be providing as much creativity. You don't need your center back to be bombing forward. If you've got a ball progressor in there, Sumari does that. And he's 21. McTominay's 24. He's already entering the prime of his career. Sumari's still developing. Maybe he develops into the replacement for Matic. Maybe he doesn't, and maybe he's just depth and a squad player. But that's what you need, because you just can't have the drop-off be that extreme when a player like when your first 11 has to have a day off.
Yeah, no, I know. And look, we saw it last year in other areas of the pitch. Like, obviously, when we didn't have Bruno, what was the alternative? Pereira and Lingard. It only takes one player sometimes, Paulie, to make the whole difference. I mean, obviously, we've talked about Donny van de Beek a lot, so we're not going to talk about him. But again, there's going to be a time when he's called upon this season. And we will notice when he plays in the areas that he wants to play, he's going to be a fantastic squad addition for United. We just haven't, Bruno's just been amazing so far and not needed that rest and not being injured, touch wood. And hopefully, that continues. But I think if we do see Donny come into that position, we'll see a different Donny, and we'll see how much that signing has benefited us rather than seeing him in a double pivot. You put this comment up here, Paulie, so
we'll get to it. Let's do the poll.
Okay, we will get there. Look, before we move on, because we're going to move on to the poll results, Paul, you put a poll up yesterday for people to do. I do just want to read this comment out because it did catch my attention. Christian said, I read them all today regarding your tactical briefing. If he fails his study exams tomorrow, Paul, study exam tomorrow, it'll be your fault. So there's one for you to go to bed on tonight, mate. There you go.
I'm sorry. I'm glad that someone loves my work that much that they're taking a study break to read it. That really makes me feel good.
Yeah, that's good. No, well, thank you, Christian, for getting in touch. Right, guys, we will be talking next about United's game against Liverpool. So do get in touch with us. Talk about how you think the setup would go. How you think the setup will go, what your sort of teams would be. I'd love to hear from you. We'll read some of those out and we will discuss. But for now, Paulie, let's have a look at the poll results. Brilliant. So, Paulie, whack that up on the screen for me. Absolutely brilliant. This is the happy hour poll question. Now, we normally do this and we normally read it out on a Tuesday, but this week we did it a bit differently. Why not? We think we were all a bit nervous Tuesday, and the only thing we had on our minds was the game. Now it's Thursday. We're top of the league. We can do 10 polls if you want, but actually the poll that you put up, Paulie, and I've got a bit of a confession to make here soon, so I'm not looking forward to this. You asked people if you were offered right now for United to knock Liverpool out of the cup, but it meant they would draw at Anfield on Sunday and draw at Craven Cottage on Wednesday, would you take it? Now, I've got to be honest with you, Paulie. I voted yes, but before anyone comes in on me on this, right, I will say this. Looking at this poll again the last couple of days, for some reason, my eyes seem to miss the point where you said and draw at Craven Cottage. I thought you meant would you take a draw at Anfield if it meant that you got a win in the FA Cup. I didn't realise that you put the curveball of Fulham there in the middle. And if my eyes would have caught that, I'd have probably said no, to be fair, because I do think we can go to Fulham and win. I know it's a place we've struggled historically, and we have struggled, but I think to drop 4 points in 2 games would actually be a bit too much. The draw against Liverpool, I could take, to be fair, and then fight our battles further down the line in the league. But actually, 2 draws, I'm not quite sure. But what I will say is we had quite a lot of votes on that. So thank you to everyone who did get involved. If you're not sure where to find our poll, there's usually one up there every week. It's at United Happy Hour. Paulie puts it up there. It's usually an interesting talking point. We always get round to it on the show, Paulie, when it goes up. So first of all, I'm just going to ask you a simple question, Paulie. Did you vote? And if you did vote, where did your vote go on that? What's your thoughts?
I voted yes. Now, I have to say, I kind of forgot about the caveat that City are kind of flying up the table and have matches in hands, and that they are the favorites. They are actually the favorites to win the league. But to me, if it was just United and Liverpool, to me, you've got a better chance of having a successful season. Obviously, I want to win both games, but I don't think that's possible. And look, if I'm wrong about that, I will gladly take that on the chin.
Yeah.
To give you your best chance of a successful season, you want a cup run as well. So if that means I can't go to Anfield and win, that means I can't go to Anfield and win. But if I go to Anfield and draw, okay, I'm still 3 points up now. All right. And we didn't lose. That's good. I'm still 3 points up. Liverpool are still exhausted. They've got a lot of games coming up as well. then the Fulham match. Okay, you look at what our schedule is. It's Fulham, then Liverpool again, and then I think we got Sheffield United, we have Arsenal, we have Southampton. Somewhere along the line, points are going to be dropped. Right? I mean, macro. Look, you look at all those games. Who's beating us? Maybe Arsenal because we can't beat them since since Arteta came in. Maybe, but like at an individual level, you look at every one of those games. We should win each one. But on a macro level, you're like, we're not going to. You're not going to win all of them. So where are the points going to be dropped? If it happens at Fulham, okay, fine, it happens at Fulham. And if that means if you were to now, I obviously don't want us to drop points at Fulham, but if you told me today that if you drew it at Anfield and at Fulham, which means worst comes to worst, you're still a point ahead of Liverpool, but that guarantees that you're going to knock them out of the cup. Yeah, I'd sign on the dotted line. If they just say, oh, you're going to draw against Liverpool and draw against Fulham, and then you have a shot at beating Liverpool, I'd be like, well, no, like I don't want that. But if it guaranteed me a chance to progress in the cup, I'm signing on the dotted line for that.
Yeah. One point I want to make, Paulie, and then I have a question for you. Like, I don't have an issue drawing against Liverpool this weekend. The only thing I will say, and I think this is important for this team and for the evolution of this team, and if they want to give the perception to everyone that they're serious, there is a way of drawing a game, Paulie, and they need to make sure that they draw a game with it being a good performance, not getting lucky, not necessarily playing in a way that we played there a few years ago under Mourinho when we decided to play 6 at the back. That famous game that finished 0-0 with Zlatan isolated up front on his own for the whole game. If you see so many stills from that,
we still should have won thanks to Pogba giving him a gorgeous pass that he didn't finish.
But I think it's important for this team to go to Anfield. Look, you're top of the league. Like I said on Red Devils Talk last night, for people who are not really on this or getting behind it, enjoy it. Don't take it for granted. It's been 8 years since we were in this position. Look, that goes for the players. You're top of the league going to Anfield. You don't know when this chance may come around again. We don't know what Liverpool will be in the next couple of years, whether they'll get stronger or whether they'll go on a decline. But right now, we are where we're at. Go to Liverpool and play this game like we're league leaders, Paul. And by that, I don't mean being kamikaze. I don't mean going and just being attacking and leaving space all over. But have some intent in your game. Have some intent in your formation and your setup, which is ironic that I say that because we'll get to our predicted 11s and mine's not exactly designed to go and attack, I don't think. But, have some intent in your game. And the way you approach this game is key, both for the perception of everyone else looking at it, but also for United and the players to see that actually, they can compete and they can play Liverpool almost at their own game. I will give you a chance.
I think last year gives us a little. I think last year's game gives us if you remember last year's match, we gave up a goal on a set piece. Oh, what else is new? Early, and then from the 20th minute through the 90th minute, we were the better team and we had the better chances. Now there was an element of it seemed like Liverpool were sitting back and letting us do this. And if we scored any time before the 85th minute, they would just turn it back on and probably score a second. That did seem like that was what was happening. But remember, Wan-Bissaka put one right across the box that Pereira missed. Martial had a great chance in the second half. We had our chances, and then we threw 11 players up in stoppage time. And, they just went the other way and scored on an empty net to make it 2-0. That was a much closer game than the scoreline suggests. And if we could do that again, Liverpool have come back down to earth enough, and we have gotten better enough that we could flip that into a 1-1. I mean, remember, we had Anthony Martial played in that game. There was no Marcus Rashford. There was no Paul Pogba. There was no Bruno Fernandes. And it was close.
Yeah. No, I agree. But my question that I wanted then to pose to you, Paulie, which has kind of gone completely out of my head now. I can't remember. So what I will do is, until I can think of it, Paulie, I will go back to a question that we had earlier.
How about this? I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, go for it.
You said that it's about the performance and it's about how we play. So how would you line the team up to play in this game?
Well, exactly. There we go. I knew you'd do this, Paulie. You've almost shamed me here by doing this, mate. But yeah, so I'm going with that massively attacking double pivot of McTominay and Fred. I mean, you couldn't want more attacking, adventurous play than to put those two in your team. No, in all seriousness, like I said, I caveat the idea of being attacking and going for it with also the fact that you cannot be silly. This is still a great team, and you cannot leave holes. So I would go with the back four that's been playing a lot recently. A lot of people are suggesting Lindelof may be best to come in for this game, just because if United have got to sit deeper, he's probably the better centre back to do that, because obviously he's looking to press high up the pitch when he defends. He goes out to people, and whether he can do that and leave the channels free, I'm not sure. But I actually love the form that Bailly's in at the moment, and I think he has to play for me. So I've gone for Maguire and Bailly, and Wan-Bissaka at right back and short left back. That's obvious. Obviously, the double pivot is always you're always fighting with yourself with that, because you like the idea of Matic and Pogba, but yet you know that in a big game, Ollie's go-to is those two, and you know why they're his go-to, because they bring a lot of energy. They're good at closing down, and I think what's key for United here is stopping things at source. So what Liverpool are going to be looking to do all game, we know, is find Salah, Mane, Firmino, and they're going to try and do that through their midfield. So you want a double pivot in there, like we've done against PSG, trying to stop the source of getting the balls to likes of Neymar and Mbappe. That's what McTominay and Fred have done well when they've played against PSG. That's what you're looking for your double pivot to do against Liverpool. You're looking to stop Thiago, Wijnaldum, Jordan Henderson. Those players aren't going to hurt you themselves per se, but they are capable of finding little balls in towards the front three and causing problems that way. So that's why I've gone for that double pivot. I've gone for Pogba on the left, and I did fight myself over this because I know Rashford's got a fantastic track record of giving
Rashford's producing from the right, though. He's producing.
But he has got a great record of giving Trent issues on that other side. And Trent's if I'm a Liverpool fan, Trent's.
You don't think Pogba can give Trent issues?
Yeah, I do, and I think that's what I'm saying. That's why, in the end, I was happy to stick with Pogba, because Pogba, if he can hold that position and be brave there, he's going to attract a couple of players towards him. He's going to attract the attention of Trent Alexander-Arnold, which means he can't go forward as much, which is massive for Liverpool, because Trent loves nothing more than to be able to play as basically a right winger. But also he's going to attract the person whoever's playing RCM or whoever's playing that right side of midfield for Liverpool. And then that's going to, hopefully, if they line up something similar, like a lot of people are suggesting they will, a 4-2-3-1, I don't think they play it as well as we do. And it means that their other double pivot will end up getting left exposed to someone like Bruno, who's just going to chase him down all game, to be fair. So that's the way I see it, as a lot of people do. Rashford, like you said, has done okay on the right. I think there will be opportunities at times for maybe him to switch over to the left and do some things over there. And it's Martial and Cavani up front for me, because, well, not Martial and Cavani, sorry, Martial or Cavani, because I just don't know whether Martial going to be fit. I didn't give him a hope in hell's chance after Burnley, because I thought that was a hamstring, and that's normally 3 to 4 weeks. But actually, the reports this week is that it's not as bad as they first feared.
I didn't think he even got hurt again. I think he did one of those like, oh, I got hurt because he just missed a great chance. And he was tired, so he walked off the field very slowly, and it's a 1-0. And if the ref won't hurry you up when you make it seem like, and he was wasting time, because right away United came out and they're like, it's not as serious as we thought. I don't even think he's hurt. The comments do a great job of explaining my team. Explain your team to us, Pauly, because it looks a lot more attacking and probably a lot more better than mine does, to be fair. Teams play conservative. This is from Aditya, not my burner account. And I'll tell you why it's not my burner account at the end. Teams play conservatively against us now. McFred have either been taken out of the game or haven't been able to progress the ball. How can Ollie solve this against Liverpool? Well, I think he should solve it the same way that I suggested he solved it against City. Go to this diamond that shifts into a 4-2-3-1. You have Matic and Fred back there as your base. You get the passing of Matic and Fred. Pogba provides you extra help in midfield. The reason I opt for a more of a diamond, I'm going to get to that. I saw that comment from Cobb, and I'm going to get to that. The reason that I opt for a diamond instead of more just the regular 4-2-3-1 is because Pogba will come back into midfield more than, which gives you more protection up the middle. Liverpool aren't the most physical midfield, and they're not that fast. We're talking about Jordan Henderson and Curtis Jones. We're not worried for pace here with Matic. But I want those split forwards because that's where you want to attack. Because when Robertson and Alexander-Arnold come up the field, you want to attack those flanks. Now, Liverpool are very good at defending this. So if you take 2 or 3 passes to try to find a Rashford or a Martial running into those spaces vacated, it's too late. But when you have a Pogba and a Bruno, and it's one pass to Bruno, or Pogba gets it and he could just look up and spring Rashford, then you could take advantage of that. So that's why I opt for that sort of thing. But as Aditya said, like Matic just played. Yes, Matic did just play. And this is where it gets dicey. Matic did just play, and I also think he needs to play against Fulham. My hope is that maybe Ollie didn't play Matic a lot in the first half of the season so that he can start using him 2-3 games in a row before then resting him appropriately as the season goes along. We got some other comments here from Aravind. I have a feeling Klopp may have the arrogance where Liverpool will still play their higher pressing games and not change for United. And there's another one here from NZ. Liverpool will not change their game, which is the high press. We need to hit them on the break big time. Yeah. So what you're telling me is you haven't watched a lot of Liverpool this year because they are not a high pressing team this year. They have scaled back their high press this year. And what scares me about Fred and McTominay is the playbook is out there. Frank Lampard did it. Thomas Tuchel did it. Pep Guardiola did it. And Jurgen Klopp, who we consider the best, if not the second best manager out there, you don't think he's doing his homework and he's going to look and say, well, my team always, instead of just going up the middle, which, by the way, Liverpool don't like to do anyway. They like to make those switches between Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. They like to go side to side. Yeah. And you don't think Jurgen Klopp's going to be like, well, let's just do that and then when United do get the ball, back off. Teams press McTominay and Fred. They press them less per touch than any other combination United have had, which is part of the reason that they struggle. So instead of trying to put them under pressure, they're just saying, I'm going to go and mark Pogba. So now there's no pass option for you. And I'm going to go and mark Bruno. So now there's no pass option for you. So now you have to do what we were talking about before. When Matic threaded the needle, we're going to make you do that. And they're not good enough to do that. So I'm very...
That segues nicely, though, Paul. I just want to move on to Cobb's comment where he said, isn't this a perfect game for Ollie to go back to the ideal top 6 to counter-attack? So obviously Cobb feels that they're going to come with a high press and they're going to dominate possession, and can we get in behind them? So have you got anything to say to that comment? By the way, guys, some brilliant comments coming in tonight about teams, the way we should set up. Keep them coming in. We're trying our best to interact with you. We've got a couple of more minutes left, so we will read this one out, Paulie. What's your thoughts on this one? I know you mentioned you saw it earlier. You did want to mention it. Go back to the ideal top 6.
Yeah, I mean, here's my question though. What is that ideal top 6? Who is it? It's obviously Bruno, Rashford, Martial. Who's playing on the right? Who's playing in that pivot? Because if it, like we just said, if it's McTominay and Fred, you're probably going to run in to the same problems that we've had all game. McTominay and Fred's first big game was against Liverpool because that was the first time Solskjaer ever took the progression responsibilities away from them. He just said, we're going to have Young and Wan-Bissaka and Maguire and Lindelof. They're going to handle the progression for you. And they did. And United still only had like 35% of the possession. They, They got that goal, but they didn't really have any other chances in that game. They just played very well defensively because they're doing half a job. Yeah. Now, I would go into that 4-2-3-1 and counterattack with Pogba in the base too. If you wanted to slide Dan James in on the right to really hit them on the counter, and because Dan James will track back and help you out with Robertson and Sadio Mane.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that. But can you play Pogba Matic? That's the question. Yeah. And I don't think you can. So you would have to go Pogba and Fred. But Ollie has never used Pogba and Fred. And it drives me nuts. I don't know why. Because I think
he feels that Fred doesn't have the physicality to do it. And also, 2, he doesn't cover Pogba as well as what Matic does. And maybe, I don't know about McTominay, but if you look at Matic is perfect for Pogba because he allows Pogba to do and he just seems to be right there for him. And I've said before, I think there's a nice relationship between Pogba and Matic off the field as well. I think there's a friendship and a trust there. And you can see it. There's a lot of banter flying around. And I think that's why that works. It's almost a bromance, whereas I don't think Fred is disciplined enough to do what Matic does when Pogba plays it.
I think it's the physical aspect, because we remember last year, United in the first half of the season were a team that were averaging 1.5 goals a game. And then for 2 games, we had to start Pereira and Fred in midfield. And it was a disaster because they couldn't maintain possession and it was a physical issue. They were bullied out of the midfield, and it was awful. And our defense was terrible. We conceded 5 goals in those games. We also scored 5. Yeah. So the attack was much better. So now Paul Pogba isn't Andreas Pereira. He's not Scott McTominay either. If you want Paul Pogba to play like Paul Pogba, then, first of all, he did go with Pogba and Fred in midfield in the Europa League, and they were fantastic, and United were a big-time attacking team. I don't know if you could do that in the Premier League, though. Liverpool's midfield not as physical, and they're probably going to play Thiago, who's not a physical guy. He's a passer.
I was just about to say, I don't think this is the most physical Liverpool team you're ever going to come up against. But if you look at set pieces as well, even they have no Van Dijk, things like that. He's been a big threat to United from corners and free kicks in previous seasons as well, Paulie. I think that is another thing that United need to think about with their setup. Obviously against Burnley, they put a lot of big lads in there because they knew what they were getting with Burnley. But with Liverpool, you're not going to get the same physical test as you normally do because the likes of Van Dijk aren't playing, I think.
Right. It all comes down to, best players versus best teams. So if you want Paul Pogba to be Paul Pogba, Fred might not allow him to do that, especially not in this game. But what if you ask Paul Pogba to be Scott McTominay? And here's a little look. We all say, McTominay, he's known for his energy and his defense, and Pogba is not willing to do the defending. Well, Pogba defends more than McTominay.
Yeah.
So let's say you ask Pogba to be Scott McTominay, you're getting that same defensive issue. And the last time Paul Pogba played against Liverpool, he put in a defensive masterclass. In that 0-0 game where United basically played with 10 men, Paul Pogba was unbelievable defensively in that game. So let's say you ask him to be McTominay, you're getting the defense. Now you're getting the passing and the on the ball skills of Paul Pogba. So are you going to get the best Paul Pogba? No, you're not. But it's one game, and you just need him to do different things. So I don't think it has a shot in hell at happening. It would be ballsy to do it. And to answer Aditya's question, he says, will Pogba track back well enough to play?
Yeah, that's the only thing I'd say.
The answer, so that's what you're saying to him, is you're basically saying you don't have the freedom to get forward. And then you don't have to worry about the tracking back. And look, we've seen it against Manchester City. We saw it against, in that last game against Liverpool that I mentioned from 2 years ago. When he knows he needs to put a shift in, which he did twice against City, he doesn't venture off, and he does stay disciplined. And then against Villa and against Burnley, when you say you have more freedom, he does. He very much knows what's at stake here. He's not going to say, this needs to be the Paul Pogba show, and Rashford's got the ball in the left corner. I need to get my ass into the box. He's going to be smart. He wants to win this game.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a shot in hell at happening. He's not going to do it. But I think it could work, and it would be a huge ballsy call if he did it. I would love to see him do it in the FA Cup, next week to give it a shot there.
Yeah.
There's one before we sign off. Collada asked Van de Beek is needed. My question to you, Collada, is where? Who's he playing instead of?
Okay, yeah.
Because, Van de Beek doesn't do any of the defensive things that Pogba, McTominay, or Fred do, or Matic. He's not a direct passer. You need the whole reason to make this work on the counterattack is to be direct and have these long, you want Pogba playing Rashford in behind from deep. Van de Beek is not a forward passer. He's a possession passer. Where does he fit in? Who does he play instead of? Look, everybody's going to tell you, every United fan who has seen him play recently will tell you, Donny Van de Beek is a very talented player. Who's he getting into the team over? He's not playing better than anyone right now.
Exactly. No, I agree. And I just put this comment out because I mentioned this earlier. What do you guys think of Thiago potentially playing a 4-2-3-1 full? I think Bruno could. And that's what I said. I think if you play Pogba on the left, he will attract the attention of the right-sided centre midfielder in that double pivot. So therefore, that will leave Thiago to Bruno to feast on all game. And Bruno, look, if he's struggling or not for form, Paulie, we know one thing for sure. In a game like this, he's going to run his socks off for 90 minutes. He's going to press and he's going to close down. Look, we've had a lot of similar suggestions,
Paulie. The last thing I'll say, though, you're right. Like, Pogba has to be in the team. He has to be in the team.
Yeah.
And if it has to be on the left wing, it has to be on the left wing. The reason that I go to the diamond is you saw, against PSG, we just left Rashford and Martial high to expose them there. So that's why if he's going to play on the left, you'd rather it kind of be a diamond to leave so that you can leave Rashford and Martial up high, or if it's Cavani, if Martial's not fit, Cavani, not Greenwood, or even Dan James, who has played well in a front two last season. You want to leave them high so that you can expose them when Alexander-Arnold and Robertson come. If you're just playing a 4-2-3-1 with Pogba on the left wing, then when Alexander-Arnold, goes forward, Pogba's got to track back, and then you're missing that thing, and then it becomes a midfield battle. And I don't favor McTominay and Fred to win that battle.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me nervous about the diamond, Paulie, is sort of what someone said. I think Aditya said it in the comments earlier that I put up. Do you not worry that exposes us down the flanks with, the fact that they want to get their fullbacks forward? Would a diamond not worry you from that point of view?
That's exactly what Leipzig wanted to do. But the whole thing is then you have Fred and Pogba over there to help. And you have Matic dropping in the middle. And then when the ball's on the right, you have Fred also in the middle. If the ball's on the left, Pogba's also in the middle. But as the tip of the diamond, Bruno then drops into the middle in that midfield also. So when you have the ball on the flanks, which, by the way, this is how teams play now. They're happy to let you have the ball on the flanks because you know what you don't do from the flanks? You don't score. You got to put the ball back in the middle. And if we have Matic and Fred and Bruno and Pogba, if they're all in the middle, there's only so much that Liverpool can do. They got to whip a cross in. You have Maguire, who is, the stats been coming out. He's won more aerial duels than anybody. You'll probably have Bailly in there. That's the reason I would put Bailly in over Lindelof, although I'm a Lindelof fan. So if they choose Lindelof, there's a reason for it. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I would put Bailly in. Yeah.
Paulie, look, we need to wrap up, but I just want a quick answer for you. Just on this comment from you on this comment, Paulie, because we've had a lot of suggestions about tactical setups and it's been brilliant. Well done, everyone. Thanks for getting involved. Everyone seems to think it'll be 4-2-3-1, 4-2-2-2, diamonds, however you want to look at it. Just this one quickly, Paulie. He went with a 5-3-2 last year. Is there any chance, do you think, that we could see 5 at the back on Sunday?
No.
Okay.
I'll tweet this out tomorrow. I don't have the screen grabs available to just blast them up. But if you look at the average positions of when we actually play with a back three, it's much less a back three and much more of a 4-2-3-1. Alex Telles is just playing on the left wing and he tracks back, and then Shaw tucks inside when we're defending to make a back five. But in every other situation, it's just a 4-2-3-1. And why would you put why would you play 5 defenders instead of, a Rashford or a Pogba there? Why would you do that? We're not Jose Mourinho.
No, exactly. And like you say, against Liverpool, the back five quickly becomes a back six, doesn't it? Or back six, whatever you want to say. So, no, look, guys, that's all we have got time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been brilliant to get your interaction today. I can see just from the comments how excited everyone is about Liverpool. And like Gary Neville said, I think we should enjoy this week, Paulie. It's been a long time since we've been in this position. Even if we lose this game at Anfield, it's not going to be great for confidence and morale. But at the same time, let's not forget Liverpool will only put them level on points with us.
I've always said Anfield is my favorite and least favorite fixture on the list. I get terrified watching it. The wins are almost less fun than more relief. And I'm enjoying this now. I could tell you, when I wake up on Sunday morning, my heart will be pounding from here. I remember telling you the Leeds match, like for one reason or another, I was like tired before I went to the pub to watch it. So I took a caffeine pill and my heart was like pounding on the train. And I was like, I don't know if this is the caffeine or if this is me just being nervous that like we might screw it up against Leeds. And, 3 minutes and 2 goals later, my heart's calmed down a lot. And I was like, I guess it was just the nerves. I imagine Sunday will be exactly the same way.
Yeah, I think for me, Paulie, when I look back at some of the recent wins at Anfield, there's been I think someone said in the comments earlier, we haven't actually won there since 2016.
Yeah, Wayne Rooney.
A lot of the wins in my recent memory bank seem to always be smash and grab wins as well, Paulie. They seem to always be a late win. I think of the John O'Shea goal at the Cop. I think of other games where we've had.
We just don't win there that often. There was the John O'Shea one. We won the following year, but that was a first half Tevez goal on like a shot cross from Anderson. And I think
the last time we went there and deserved to win, Paulie, was probably the Juan Mato acrobatic goal under Louis van Gaal. I think we went there and we scored them that day, but that is the first time I can remember United winning Liverpool dominating the game.
They went down to 10 men right after halftime, famously. That was also the game where Angel Di Maria just caught the ball like 2 yards away from the touchline and didn't get a handball. But that, and then the next year, Rooney didn't score late. He scored, I think, at like just after halftime, but it was 1-0. It was a big one. That was the one thing Van Gaal did, is he beat Liverpool 4 times. Mourinho did it once. It's tough. I would just go in there and win. And the other thing I wanted to say was, imagine if he puts Amad Diallo on the bench and, 85th minute, it's 0-0 or 1-1. And he just goes, you know what? Go out there and see if you can make a difference. And he scores the winner. Like, would that be great? Or would that put way too many expectations on Amad Diallo?
It would feel like a Martial moment, although the Martial moment was obviously at Old Trafford. But that was still one of the most spine-tingling moments in recent United history. That goal when Martial came on for his debut against Liverpool and beat a couple of players and finished nicely, and obviously the start of his career. But wow, if Diallo could do something similar, talk about making yourself an instant hero, Paulie. But like I say, that is all we've got time for today. Once again, Paulie, we've given people 8 minutes free. 8 minutes free. You've given them an article for free. You've given them links to your channel for free. Look, we're in generous mood. I think you guys need to hope United stay top of the league for a lot longer, because I think the longer we stay top, the more generous we will get. But thanks for joining us, guys. It's been great to chat to you today. Buzzing for the weekend. Hope you all are too. Whatever happens, enjoy it, embrace it, and we'll be back next Tuesday for another United Happy Hour.